I've seen people account managed by email and all they're doing is really reaching out and saying, hey, have you got any more clients to add? That's not really building a relationship. It's not adding value. There's no value exchange. I don't see that connection going on anymore. I think that's such a shame. As an app vendor, you're targeted with selling subscriptions. There's a way to do that where you don't have high levels of churn. I just kind of get the sense that no one's really asking those questions. Your customers know they can trust you. That's why they remember you after 10, 11 years. What keeps me awake at night is thinking how an accountant's customers are going to consume those services in 5, 10 years' time. That's an element that I think firms have fallen into a trap of.
Darren Glanville was one of the very first people out selling software as a service solutions to accountants way back in 2009. And so in many ways, he's one of the godfathers of modern SaaS selling, certainly in the accounting tech space. Now, a lot of Darren's approach is based on great relationships, building strong trust and doing that over a prolonged period of time. In fact, many of his partners from the early days still deal with him today. And if you look at many of the award winners in the zero categories or the advanced technology firms, you'll find that a lot of them will have been account managed by Darren in their early days of adopting tech and adopting cloud. In this session, we talk a lot about what comes from a great account manager, what to expect from a great account manager. And so it's really essential viewing for anyone dealing with account managers from software services firms or account managers themselves, that they can learn how to be better, how to deliver value, and how to keep giving the accounting tech space a good reputation to live up to.
Darren, so you started selling accounting software back in 2009, right? So probably one of the first people to actually be going knocking on doors and doing that. Obviously, you've got a longer history of selling software, but I'm really keen to understand what changes you've seen in that time, maybe which ones are most surprising to you.
I think, for us, and you were part of that journey as well. And, back in the days of Zero, when really cloud accounting was in its infancy, people were still unsure what the cloud was, what it meant. We were banging the doors around this concept of the single ledger, what that meant. And, I remember a video, that we put out at Zero when people were asked in the street, what is the cloud? Can you explain it? And people were pointing up and all that kind of stuff. I think the one thing that we were so passionate about at that point in time, not just myself, was that whole transformation journey that we were taking people on. This wasn't just seen as, there's a kooky term for it now. It's called digitization. But for us, it was all about, sitting with those partners, those early adopters, and saying, this is where you are now. Where do you want this to be? And how do we get you on that journey? And a very much a real consultative sell, but we were selling the idea of, them working in a different way that meant that they were closer to the client, they were processing faster. All of the things that the single ledger promised, working in real-time data. We had wonderful things like the concept of bank feeds coming through that did that. And yeah, you were there as well. We were knocking on doors, taking names, running events with 3 people at them, worrying about, who else can we bring through the door. I think we somewhere along the way, we've probably lost a little bit of that transformation piece. It's I think lots of firms they're seeing themselves like, use Zero, therefore I'm a digital firm. And actually, no, there's a lot more to the digitization and the transformation journey that you can go on. And I think you've summed it up in many other articles and posts on LinkedIn that you've done. Is that's just one element. It's the next bit. And I think for us, and what's always interested me about working with accountants is, okay, we've done that bit. What next? How else are we going to do it? What keeps me awake at night is thinking how an accountant's customers are going to consume those services in 5, 10 years' time. And how firms need to keep that pace of change. Technology's evolved over the last 10, 12 years now, where we've seen the rise of APIs. We're getting much more applications integrating and talking to each other. That has those benefits. So I think we still need to continue on that transformation piece. It's not just a one and done exercise. It's looking at other areas and how do we bring payments into that now? And I appreciate it's not for everybody. There are accountants out there that want to make a very good living just purely doing tax returns and accounts, and that's fine. But there are also a lot of firms that really want to go deeper. They want to provide more services to those clients. And I think, for me, it's starting to approach this with a business development head, and go out there. And I think, we see M&A acquisitions, M&A activity increasing. I think we're seeing a lot more firms start to think of themselves and run themselves as businesses and not, have so much of that equity partner model. And I think, I've had conversations with people who think that model's broken. And so they want to run a much leaner, much more simplified structure. So I think there's a lot more to do. And I think advisory is a term I hate, but I think there's definitely more services that people can be pushing to their clients and selling to their clients, and being more of that holistic accountant that their clients really need.
So if
Unpick that.
I don't know about 5 or 6 things to go after that.
But as you know, we spoke about this many times before. Change is a constant, and I think firms need to embrace that culture of change, not for change's sake, change and evolution, because the marketplace is changing, your clients are changing, the technology is changing. We have to keep pace with that. And I think we have to either embrace that or come to the conclusion that actually we can't compete. We're not going to compete, and therefore are we better off merging or selling our fee base to somebody else?
Yeah, absolutely. The basis for hopefully what the show can deliver is not telling firms what they should be doing, but how to do it. But I think there is an underlying assumption there that change is going to be part of that, right? Everything has to keep evolving, as you say. And so if whatever the change is, whether that's getting onto the cloud, whether it's, like you said, making a more lean structure or thinking about how the firm operates or what that business model looks like, what do you think firms listening to this can learn from the adoption of some of the most successful tech firms that have really taken cloud and embraced it? What can they learn from them and how they've managed to change to adapt that they can then apply in whatever other changes they want to run in their practice?
I think that's a really good question. I think there's probably several things and multiple things that they can take. Is one that, what is the strategy for the firm ultimately, and understanding and being very, very clear on that, and then laying out your approach that suits that. I mean, it's not just good saying, okay, for example, we want to do payments. How are you going to do payments? To who? How are you going to fuel that? You think 2 or 3 steps ahead of that. How are you going to resource it? How do you price that? How are you going to sell that service? What's the end goal, and work backwards from there? And I think where I've seen firms be really successful is they may have taken a little bit longer to sit and think about the strategy and what they want from it, but they've really mapped it out. And that's what we saw, I think, with those early adopters. People weren't just winging it. We saw people who had a clear vision for where they wanted to be. They believed in that journey, that transition and transformation that we were showing to them and saying, hey, this is possible. We weren't forcing people to do that. We were just articulating, this is the other side. This is what it could look like. And they would fill in the blanks themselves. They would then look at the resourcing. You and I know, some of them started off as, hey, I'm just going to put my first 5 clients on this and build from that. In a lot of cases, they didn't even charge the clients for the software. They just made the decision, said, look, we believe this is going to improve your business. And they put them on, they absorbed that cost. And I think somewhere along the line, we lost that. And it then became, well, I've got to recoup, I've got to charge this to the client. It's about doing the right thing for the client. And sometimes that does mean firms absorbing that as a cost and then providing that service to the client and showing the benefit. And I think if the client believes they're getting value, then the fee will naturally go up. But I think we're trying too hard at the moment to sell apps as individual apps and rather than wrapping services around this. And I think that's an element that I think firms have fallen into a trap of is almost app advisory. We'll talk to you about the apps and we'll sell you the subscription to the app, but we're not wrapping a service around this. And I think that's the bit, whereas what we were doing was more holistic. And it felt deeper. It felt much more engaged with the client. And I think firms who are really successful did that and they've adopted it. And you can probably name them on here that ran with that and then started to think, actually, we can build a service of apps and implementation and support around that to our clients. But what we're not going to do is just go into this licensing kind of game with people.
think the difference is they've made it their own, right? So those first 5 clients that you've mentioned, that's a pilot to see, well, can we work in this way? Can we deliver value
Yes.
to clients in this way? Is there an opportunity to move the firm forwards that way,
Yeah.
rather than it's 5 clients and 5 licenses and we'll just test it, see if it works. It's the broader thing.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a risk then that all of this is now being driven to the vendors and the beat of the app's drums, rather than firms taking the lead and going, right, this is how we want to be, this is how we want to serve clients, and then everything else falls in line behind that?
It's an interesting one, because as an app vendor, you're targeted with selling subscriptions. You want to do that. I think there's a way to do that. One is where you don't have high levels of churn. You don't want people to start that service, not use it, not engage with the platform, and then ultimately cancel as a customer. That's bad for business. The key to this, and we've seen this when we were at Xero, was getting into a steady stream of organically adding clients. The more you can do that, and you're consistent with that, the better it is, and the better it's embedded. And I think that's what we try to do at Fathom, is really make sure that people are doing that. It's not a sales pitch for us, but we also want to make sure that people are paying the right price and they're not paying for something they're not using. But I do think that does have an impact. I think the other thing is, as well, is this comes back to, I think, a broader issue within account management. And I think that's adding value. Account managers are typically, I've seen people account manage by email, and all they're doing is really reaching out and saying, hey, have you got any more clients to add? That's not really building a relationship. It's not adding value. There's no value exchange. Where's the conversation of, hey, I was having this conversation with X partner last week. This is what they were telling to me. Have you thought about that? How have you found things? What are some of the things that you're working? How can we share some of those key learnings with other people and really push that sense of cooperation and collaboration, without competition, of course. And obviously we're not going to share something that's, commercially sensitive, but there are things that the community that we have as customers are happy to share. And these, you can go to any event, and those principals are on stage talking about what they've done anyway, and people are randomly making notes. And I think that's what I also loved about what we were doing, was we would actively share those insights and connect people. I don't see that connection going on anymore. It feels to me very insular. And I suppose the biggest evidence of that I see is, I remember going to trade shows, Accountex, Xerocon, others. As account managers, we would literally say, hey, have you seen this app over here? This is really exciting. I think that could really help you. And we would walk people over to the stand, make an intro. Hi, this is so-and-so. I think it'd be really good for you guys to connect. I don't see that anymore. I don't see that introduction of saying, we're aware of what the ecosystem is doing. I think this can add value to that. And I think that's such a shame that we're not fostering that sense of value exchange or community anymore.
Do you think that comes as a consequence of maybe some of the bigger app providers feeling a bit more pressure to keep growing and maybe acquiring other solutions, and therefore it becomes a little bit more inwardly focused rather than focusing on the broader ecosystem?
I think obviously there's always pressure to do that, because when you are part of that acquisition, you obviously you've got a different name above the door. But at the end of the day, we have a common customer. And for us, to me, it's always been about putting the customer first, and saying, look, that's how you build trust. That's how you build advocacy, because your customers know they can trust you. That's why they remember you after 10, 11 years, because they always know that, hey, you're not doing this because it's lining your own pockets. Yeah. You're doing this because it's adding value to what I do, and therefore I trust you. And as a counterpoint to that, the reciprocity is, I'm going to recommend you to other people that I know that, hey, Lee's a good guy, Darren's a good guy. They're the ones that you should be talking to, because they will, give you something back in return, and they're not just here to sell you a license.
A lot of what you described there really starts to build out the components of effective selling, right? It's relationships, which I know you're a massive proponent of. It's generating and sharing value. And really, I think the best account managers earn the right to be top of mind, and earn the right that someone will take their call when they ring them.
Absolutely. You know that I'm such an advocate for that. And I think that's why we have relationships that do span 10, 12 years. And beyond that, I'm still speaking to people that I was serving when I was at CCH and before that Sage. And even, dare I say it, back to 2000 when I was working at Solution 6, there are still people that come back up to me and say, you were my account manager then. And we still have that relationship with. And it is built on trust. And I think I'd love to see more of vendors, account managers today do more of that, is really take the time to understand what the pain problems are, what's going on within that practice, and are able to share and communicate with other people. I may sound a bit nostalgic when I say that, but I'm still very passionate about that.
No, I totally agree. It's still nice that if I'm at shows or whatever, people will come up to me and I was their first Xero account manager, and you will have that, as well.
Yeah.
And it's nice. And you know that you did the right thing by them, and you've not got to think, Christ, what did I sell him? And, do I need to make a beat, hasty retreat? You know that you don't have to do that because you did the right thing and you tried to add value.
Absolutely. It's the first stage of that network effect for me is building that out and building that community and that black book, if you want to call it that. But definitely something that's built on trust. And then they just know that you've got their best interest at heart.
Absolutely. So if there are account managers watching that are eager to deliver more value to their accounting firms or earn that place at the table and be involved in more conversations, aside from you've got the orgs, once a quarter, they want to develop that relationship. What are 2 or 3 things that they could start doing this afternoon or as soon as they've watched this that can start them on that path?
Really listen to your customer, understand what's going on in their world, not at a superficial level. I'm talking about a deeper level. And you've referred to it, and I've referred to it previously as, peel the layer of the onion back. Why is that important? What's going on? What's the implication of that not happening? Where would you like to go? Those solid, open questions that you can really understand that. Listen intently. Don't form an opinion that I think there's too much now that people just want to quickly blurt out an answer and say, yeah, I can help you, without fully understanding why and the implications of that. So just spend some time, speak to your customers, tell them that you were thinking about them. I was thinking, I used to do this all the time, I'd ring people on a Monday and say, I was thinking about you on Friday, because I was having this conversation and you came to mind. Is this something that you're seeing, you're feeling, you're hearing? What is it for you? And really absorb yourself and become that domain expert. And I thought, I just don't see enough of that going on. I could be wrong, but when I speak to people, I just kind of get the sense that no one's really asking those questions. I think that's, for me, would be the key race. Think about your partner's problems. Think about what they're doing, and introduce them to other people. Just ask the question: if that's a problem for you, would you mind if I made an introduction for you? More often than not, people are more than happy to have that initial conversation, and it's a warm referral. Do a LinkedIn share. Do an introduction over LinkedIn. Just introducing 5 people to an app vendor who you think that you could add value to. If we all did that, we'd have how many leads would we all have? But then don't see that as a lead in terms of selling. Just make contact, reach out, have a conversation, go and buy a copy.
Seek first to understand, and then to be understood. What's that, habit 6 or something out of there? 7 habits.
Absolutely, it's old. It may seem old sales techniques, but they work.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason, right? Like technology, times, they all change, but people and psychology is still the same, right? They want to feel heard, they want to feel understood, really want to feel sold to. They want to feel that there's someone in their corner help.
And it doesn't change the buyer journey. We know that the buyer journey is changing, and most people will make their mind up online, and then they'll come and find more information. But if there's just someone at the end of a phone that they can pick the phone up to or drop an email to and say, hey, I'm just thinking about you.
I don't think there's any reason why account managers can't be curating those insights and using that to build their personal brand and become a resource online for people to come to. Like, I might not need your particular app at the moment, but I'll follow you because I want to understand what's going on in the wider space. And then if I ever need you, who's going to be top of the list?
Front of mind, absolutely.
But flipping that around then, if I'm a cloud champion in a firm and I want to get more out of my account manager, I'm kind of getting sick of being asked if I've got any orgs every quarter. What can I do to try and influence more positive interactions, more positive relationships with my account manager at the apps that I'm working with.
Again, I think this isn't one-way traffic for me. This is bi-directional. I think if you are a champion, you're a cloud manager, look at working within practice and have an account manager. Again, reach out to them. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What's going on? What are the top 3 issues that you're hearing from others? Really dig into that knowledge and what they understand. What resources do you have? How can you help me really articulate this? Whether that, we used to do it all the time. I lost track how many times we used to run events with partners. If you invite your customers, we'll come along and talk to them. That's the kind of stuff that you really want your partners to be able to do, is to come and talk to your clients about it, because accountants aren't necessarily salespeople. And this is where I was going at the beginning, is I think there needs to be more emphasis on business development. Not that I'm expecting, accountants to become fully fledged salespeople, because we're not, but I think firms have to invest time in training around, open questions, how to ask good open questions that get to the bottom of things. At the end of the day, it's a conversation. And I think that we still really need that. But there are tons of resources that people probably aren't aware that we can provide, whether that's one-page fact sheets, whether it's a one-pager, whether it's marketing materials, whether it's actually supported events you want to run. There's lots of different vendors out there offering different things, and just tapping into that can be a wealth of resource. But, we're having conversations day in, day out with so many firms. What are people hearing? What are the insights that we're learning from? How can we address those challenges? What are other people doing in terms of pricing, etc.? There's so much information that we can share confidentially, without sort of naming names and anonymizing that. I think it's invaluable.
A lot of this advice is good for account managers that are trying to sell into the accounting space, but it's also really good for cloud champions, accountants themselves that want to go out and sell more to clients.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I don't think selling even has to be exchange of products and services, does it? It can just be ideas. And how do I sell the idea that we're going to go this way with the practice? How do I sell that to my staff internally? So taking that time to understand and get other people's motivations first is kind of key. And you mentioned questioning there. But what are the 2 or 3 fundamental sales tactics would you advocate for people to look into and start to develop their skills around?
I think one of the key fundamentals for anyone selling is to recognize when there's not an opportunity, or you need to qualify out of an opportunity. We can all spend too much time chasing something that actually isn't there. And I think more so for us in the SaaS space is looking at the scale that someone can offer. And I think this comes back to tying into, price plans and all you can eat, and thinking that people are going to scale beyond a certain point, when actually it's not going to happen. I think you've got to understand how they plan to deploy it to their customers, what help and support you can give them. And all of that has to line up. And I think if any one of those things is out, then you can probably fall foul very quickly. So I think first of all is understanding what is an opportunity. Does that fit with your requirements? Does the product fit? And how can you help that customer scale and grow? I think that's one of the key fundamentals. Understanding, is there an opportunity there, and qualifying out if necessary.
And I think there's a virtuous circle there, because you spend less time chasing loads of leads, or you can spend more time on the right people and start to develop some of the routines that you mentioned a bit ago, like sharing knowledge, bringing your network to bear, and kind of connecting the right people. Yeah. Amazing. Really good advice, mate. Thank you. Last question before we finish up then is, what is a question that you think people should be asking more of that you're surprised that they're not?
I don't think it's a question per se. I think it's just firms doing a little bit more of due diligence on the vendors, but also speaking to existing customers. I don't see a lot of that happening before. We've seen it before in enterprise sales, but I think us having the ability to say, okay, some people may not be comfortable sharing a roadmap publicly, but yes, we do have a roadmap. I think it's sometimes difficult to get a financial position on certain companies, but try and do your due diligence on people. Hopefully they've been around more than a couple of years, so there's a bit of longevity there. I think beyond that, speak to existing customers. every vendor should have a bank of 5 to 10, if not more. I'm using that as a minimum number of good quality reference sites that can say, yes, we've been customers for X number of years. This is the service we've got. It's always difficult when you start looking at financials and roadmaps. But I think due diligence, look at people. Why are people choosing to work with those vendors? What benefits are they getting from that in an honest way? And have those conversations. But sadly, we have seen a few vendors go to the wall over recent years, and that's sad, because I think some of them have been quite technologically advanced and doing some good ideas as well, but for whatever reason it hasn't happened. But I think again it just puts more pressure on vendors to be transparent about their pricing, about their backstory, and it equally puts pressure on the customer to do a little bit more due diligence. And it's not all dig beneath the shiny stuff on the surface. That's my advice.
Absolutely. Very good advice. Very good advice. Darren, we're running up to the end of the time now, which has gone incredibly quick.
How quickly did that go?
As incredibly fast. If people want to find you, follow you, contact you, where is the best place to do that?
Best place to contact me is on LinkedIn. If people want to reach out to me, they can certainly catch up with me on LinkedIn. It's flashing up on the screen there. LinkedIn.com/in/Daz Glanville, or just drop me an email to darren.glanville@fathomhq.com. But always happy to have a chat.
Thanks so much, mate. Really enjoyed chatting to you, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Look forward to it.